School Board meeting. We'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board members have received the minutes for the February 18th, 2021 board meeting. May I ask for a motion for approval of those minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from February meeting.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion so approved. Next would be personnel.
I've got 3 items on the personnel portion this evening. Looking for approval for Judy Rose-Lansky, longtime corporation treasurer, has put in her resignation effective at the end of June.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
And Ken Rose-Lansky, longtime 40-year high school algebra teacher, has put his resignation in again for the end of the school year.
I'll make a motion to approve Mr. Roslansky's resignation.
I'll second that approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
And then seeking approval for Heather Ligda as the middle school track coach.
I'll make a motion to approve Heather Linda as the middle school track coach.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. Next agenda item this evening would be the claim docket.
I'll make a motion to approve the claim docket.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Got it.
And the next agenda item is the balance sheet for this evening. Are there any questions by the board on the balance sheet? And we'll move on to the next item would be public comment. Are there any public comments this evening on the agenda? Yes.
Do I just present from here?
That's fine.
Is this
Yeah.
fine?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone from the board. My name is Marcella Konstack. I work for an organization called the Indiana, Iowa, and Illinois Foundation for Fair Contracting. We're a labor management organization that was established to promote, support, and encourage fair contracting. We work with thousands of skilled men and women who work in the building trades here in LaPorte County, and we also work with many Gold Star contractors that are also located here in LaPorte County. I would like to take this opportunity to commend Tri-Township School Board for their consideration of a responsible bidder policy. I appreciate an educational facility acknowledging that we only want the most highly trained and educated workforce on our projects. As a resident of LaPorte County, I can appreciate taxpayer savings, and I believe imposing specific requirements on contractors to bid and work on our public works projects is key to a successful, on-time, on-budget project. This will also give many quality local tradesmen and women an opportunity to work in their community, allowing them to reinvest in La Crosse and Wanatah. So I just want to commend you on deciding to contract responsibly. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
increased dramatically. So I was just wondering how Performance Services plans to complete this project under budget or at budget with estimates that were made in the spring, and what happens if they cannot complete the project under budget?
Well, it certainly does propose challenges, that's for sure. And they're not going to get any better anytime soon. So time certainly is of the essence. And that is a consideration we're all facing, to make sure that we don't wait any longer and let those prices continue to climb like they're currently trending. So I understand your concern, and it's certainly shared by everybody.
What's the plan if they need more money to complete the project?
The dollar figure is set. So there is no plan for needing more money. There can't be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions, comments this evening?
I have a question about, it pertains to IC 535-6, which talks about the procedure for RFQ and RFP processes. And so you guys did a dual RFQ and RFP at the same time. And my understanding is normally you would do, at least as the statute describes it, an RFQ first. And if you only had one person submit a proposal or response to that RFQ, which in this case was Performance Services, then you would do the resolution that you guys have on your agenda for later tonight. But you guys are, and then after that step, then they would get the invitation to submit a proposal for the RFP. How come you guys did them at the same time, and how are you able to do them at the same time?
I don't know if normally would be a correct characterization of that. What I do know is our DCD, the design criteria developer and lead architect, Dan Rollins, chose to do a progressive design build. So that's what the very nature of combining those two processes into one. Again, hearkening back to the concern for time, it's a bit more streamlined.
I guess that leads to a follow-up question, which would be that, you talk about doing this expediently and whatnot, but the actual construction isn't going to take place until summer of 2022, correct? Is it happening this summer or next summer?
My understanding, yeah. As soon as we can get going on the project, that's the intention.
So it could be finished this summer?
Finished? No.
No.
Okay.
Undertaken, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So students won't actually be able to use the facilities until the following school year?
Correct. We
Fall of
anticipate
2022.
fully being one more year here
Okay.
in the old building.
Do you guys have any concerns about Performance Services based upon their previous work, particularly given that they were late in both of their previous projects and the disruptions that caused?
No concerns whatsoever, but I won't speak for the board. They can.
I wasn't here at that time, so I have to excuse myself from that.
I know to my understanding, I think we assembled one of the best technical review committees that we've had that I'm aware of. Highly qualified individuals on that review committee that deemed them a qualified bidder.
And what would you say to someone that said that it looked like insider dealing, considering you guys had Performance Services here invited in February to give a presentation and a proposal with different solutions that they viewed for the school, and then we're the only ones to submit a proposal?
Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm not sure I understand the terminology
Insider dealing, like as if it was, one might speculate that they were picked in advance, just the way that they've already been involved with the school from the very beginning, and that they were then the only firm to submit a proposal.
I would say they've just chosen to maintain a long-standing relationship with the school, and having completed prior projects over the last 10 or 12 years, I believe. So a lot of that was just still connected to the 2015 assessments that were asked of them, and they were updating them. So yes, we reached out to have those. Could those be updated with more current numbers?
Okay.
So, I view it as a good thing. An aggressive pursuit on their part to stay in the board's good graces and work hard on behalf of Tri-Township schools.
And would the school corporation be willing to share which firms it sent out? I know Dan Rollins said that he had reached out to 20 different people or firms about this project. Would the school be willing to share which ones they reached out to and when?
I would have to look into that before I would say yes, to make sure that's something that those firms would be okay with. So let me check with council on that. But I do have the list of people who just, maybe at most had showed interest through an email, but then no follow-up, nothing submitted.
And then I think final question for tonight is, will we be able to see the proposal that Performance Services submitted?
Yeah. I actually, here's the entire proposal. I do have, so I've pulled out some information from it.
Thank you.
If people are interested, I've made a few copies of that. Be happy to pass those around. Kind of gives the highlights of a lot of the reputation of Performance Services. I know in that document that I prepared, just as a quick example, they've been in business 23 years, and in that time they've gone from 1 employee to almost 200. PSI has never had a bond claim. PSI has never failed to complete a project or fulfill a contractual obligation in all that time. And in that time, that is just shy of $2 billion worth of work. 46 of those projects were design-build public law projects. An additional 525 that were a different type of integrated design and delivery project. They've done work for, to my knowledge, 4 out of the 6 LaPorte County schools, including all 3 of the South County schools, and all of those fairly recently. As further evidence, I think it's pretty telling, the lead architect, Jerry Rolfson, who I believe has been involved with this school corporation for a decade, but between Noblesville, Avon, and Warsaw community schools, well-known, large school systems, but he's been the lead architect for just under $100 million worth of work they've entrusted him to do. So there's just a lot of information that speaks to their reputation within the school project community.
Thank you. I look forward to looking at the more detailed
Okay.
proposal they submitted.
Good. I assume that's not a problem, and I'll look into that to make sure that we can grant access for that. It's just new to me, so I would assume we can.
And Mr. Keto, just for some of your other questions, I had worked with Performance Services throughout many of their projects, even prior to us being one Tri-Township School Corporation. The first project I worked with them on, I believe, was a boiler project, and they were very, very trustworthy and honest about their approach. I can say that the other projects that you mentioned, the one project, I don't believe, well, I looked through the minutes and I wanted to make sure that I was intelligent when I answered the question or made my statement, but I don't remember anything being late in the first project other than there was things that we as a corporation asked them to do to finish things up. Like there were certain requests that were asked of them, will you do this for us, will you do this for us, but they came within budget and they came back to do special requests on behalf of the administration at that time. I believe that was Ms. McCray, who was in the school during that duration. The second project was late, but it was mostly because of some things, quite frankly, we're dealing with right now where there were some challenges with steel, trying to get the steel in. So it wasn't necessarily, they were definitely in charge of the responsible project, but themselves, they were delayed because of just the impact of steel was very at a high commodity back then, and it caused the whole project to be delayed. They've been pushing, and we've been pushing the whole duration because the intent was to start before the school started, and it was definitely frustrating on our part that it didn't take place. But it was definitely constant communication that we were in with them, and it was only because of things out of their control why they were late on that project.
Thank you. Having reviewed the minutes, it was challenging to tell exactly what extent of work was still left. The minutes don't go into a lot of detail, the exact date that they closed everything out.
Exactly, but I can't tell you, like through that whole time, there was constant communication with them. They never walked away, so that's on your own, or they never came back and said, well, you owe extra for this. We didn't understand it that way. They were very, very trustworthy during that whole process. And that's why I guess I'm very familiar through the whole process working with them. They have been invested during the whole time when they weren't even getting anything for it, showing up to meetings just to be a good partner and working in business. I would have preferred myself there would be other people involved in the competitive nature of this. Unfortunately, they were the only one that provided a bid, but in a perfect situation, you coming from business, you wanted to be competitive, you want other people to be part of the project. It just didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, we were all disappointed, something we discussed amongst ourselves a little bit, was that we were really hoping, we assumed that we'd at least have one other suitor that had interest in trying to be a part of the project, but that just, we cannot, as Mr. Rollins stated at the meeting last week, we can't force anybody to want to be a part of it, so.
And to Darren's point, I would add, time is of the essence to get our hands on any material to make sure that prices don't continue to go up with inflation, in addition to the lowest interest rates we probably will see in our lifetimes. So the bond issue and everything, if we move forward and they were able to do this within the budget, I think is really critical to understand that we get through the timing, that we lock in a really good bond rate.
The other thing I would add to that too, the feather in their cap in my eyes is the fact that they're just as hungry to do $2.5 million of work for Tri-Township schools as $17 million for Plainfield or 30-some million for Warsaw. I think that speaks volumes about, there's, they tackled $3.6 million worth of work at North White schools in the little town of Monon, the same way they go about Avon Community Schools around the I-465 corridor. I think that's pretty good endorsement.
Did any of the other companies that was sent out to, did they reply at all and should get it in time? Did any of them have any comments back that they be willing to bid?
No. Nobody applied with an actual proposal to the DCD, to Dan Rollins. And that whole process goes through him. But I would reach out and he would keep me in the loop and say, no, we still don't have anybody else officially who's...
Just a comment from my feelings that you're saying time is an essence. I don't totally agree with that because they're using the COVID as the reason that material's so hard to get. Once production ramps back up, that price should come down, not keep going up. I mean, I want to do a construction project of my own, and I'm not going to do it now, but I do feel it's going to come down. So I'm not so sure that pushing ahead right now is the right time to do it.
Well, there's the other form of time being of the essence. We had a close call this winter with the furnace here at the high school. Put us down for a few days. Fairly expensive part. Tends to make you a little bit nervous about, we still got to get through another year. And that's been my fear for several years now, is I don't want to end up trying to educate 4 different high school grade levels spread out in the few available buildings around town. So that's the other part of time being of the essence. But I agree with you, and I'm in the same boat. Possible personal building projects probably on hold, but we're fighting both those considerations.
And also weigh in the interest rates that I mentioned right now, what the interest rates are today and what they might look like in 2 years when things start doing the swap or construction costs coming down, but then interest rates going up too quickly and on the bond issue. It's just kind of balancing those two segments. Ma'am, did you have some?
Me?
I thought, oh, okay.
That leads up to my question. It was a year ago when we had the walkthrough and we were pretty humiliated. I was just wondering if you have fixed any of the problems that you had concerns about a year ago, as far as the wall, the staircase. We have millions of dollars and we're not seeing it spent here, and is, what's going to happen to the building? The furnace has to be fixed anyway.
So it's kind of two different things. We would fix those things one way if the decision was we're going to stay here long term. I'm sure our approach to them. So since we've made the decision that we're not doing that, we've fixed them to the degree that's going to get us through for the time remaining. Because why would we spend a lot of money to fix that?
I don't know how you're going to leave the school or how you would rented out like you had suggested in the
Yeah.
past.
Those-
You don't have
That's
proper
totally
planning.
just ideas at this point, because we have not gotten to the stage of what do we do with the building. We just, once it's vacated, we just know it's time for it to be vacated.
It's time to probably have a plan in place too.
Well, we got, some things we take in steps, and so we got to have the place to go into and continue education, and then we can pivot back to this and go, okay.
The next thing is, the last few years, people in the community have commented about the school not being taken care of as far as the mowing, the dirty windows, a lot of different things, tennis court.
Okay.
And we have graduation, we have proms, people come in and they say, what happened here? And I'm wondering if you're going to have an Earth Day this year or something to make it look more appealing. I don't know how you're going to attract students if it's
Yeah.
not looking nice around here.
I think Mr. McMahon and I probably plan on doing our Earth Day, is that what you?
That was
called it?
one thing that they had in the
And last
past.
year, we didn't get a chance to do
Yeah.
it.
Pardon?
Last year, we didn't get a chance to do it, with it being in April and us being out of the building.
Right,
That was one-
but that would have been
no.
time to get the outside looking a little spiffier than it has
So,
been for years.
But we've had kids, we had a group, last year, I pulled 15 kids together and we came in on a Saturday and did a bunch of work around the building outside. And that's a plan again. We have a couple clubs that need service hours, so we're waiting for it to warm up a little bit so we can go out and do those things.
I hope so.
So I'm thinking like the first week of April, second week.
Because
well,
there's
first
so many
week
that
we're
are feeling
out,
pretty
yeah, somewhere
embarrassed
around
when you
there.
walk through and it's been a long year of not seeing anything being done.
Grass gets mowed every Sunday.
Pardon?
The grass gets mowed every Sunday.
It's going to be mowed this year?
It gets mowed every Sunday.
Okay.
I mow it every
There were
Sunday.
different graduations that it wasn't.
It's always been mowed every Sunday.
No,
for the
I'm
last
sorry.
4 years.
Not at graduation.
Yes, it
Several
was.
people have spoken about it,
Well, several people were wrong.
and it might be you.
Not wrong. I mow it every Sunday. I mowed it before graduation, the day before, every year, the last 4 years. 100%.
Does the school compensate you for this?
Huh?
Does the school compensate you for this?
Yeah, check the records.
How did you get around the conflict of interest laws?
The same way I signed. Look into it.
I got two questions. From the time you guys start to the time you set for closing, or when they gotta be finished, I'd like to see an update of progress. And then I'd like to know what your experience is gonna be if they have a crossover, is the performance gonna take care of that or taxpayer?
So with the design build, the price is set. And once the scope of work is set, it's set. There's no change orders, there's no price. We have to get the project done and under the ceiling, especially with a non-controlled project.
So what you're telling me, when they overrun, it's out of their pocket instead of ours.
That's correct.
Okay, but I'd like to see a
Yeah.
progress probably every 3 months
Yeah,
is going.
yeah, that's an additional
Because I know they're
thing.
gonna run into problems. No, everybody does want a project.
That's right, that's right.
And my understanding is the bond issue will be for exactly that, so we won't have the money to pull from, the bond issue will be for the exact amount of the project itself.
And you're gonna pay them what, in so many installments during the whole process?
Now, that I'd be guessing at, because, that's the next phase, is we've got an upcoming meeting with bond counsel that'll
Okay.
kind of walk us through that. So
I'm fine with
I
that.
would think that would be the case, there would be installments. Yeah. There's, later on the docket tonight, there is the phase 1, if the board so chooses to continue with that, and that'll explain the initial monetary that goes to performance services.
Okay, and your bond funds, can they be able to draw off of that a little bit more than what you guys got planned? 'Cause I know
No.
someone do, okay, they set it at a certain rate and that's it. Okay.
It's set, and we can't supplement it in any way.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
If I may, is the entire amount going to be funded through a bond, the 2.72 million entirely, or will you guys use some of your savings to fund the project?
We can't
You can't use your savings.
use our savings.
None of it?
No.
What can it be used for then?
It could be used other things, but as far as this project, it is only the bond proceeds for this project. You agree with that answer, Jim?
I believe that's what my interpretation
That's
was.
my understanding.
We can definitely ask the question, just to make sure that we're not misunderstanding.
One more question. So do you intend to keep the building where it will be able to maintain itself structurally when you abandon it? Has there been any discussion about what's going to happen with the building once you guys leave it?
Yeah, until we have an answer for what the long-term decision of the building is, we're certainly going to maintain the building. We're not going to let, we're not going to let pipes freeze and bust. Yeah, if we can avoid that. I mean, that's happened while we've been in it several times, but we're going to maintain it until we have a collective answer on what becomes of it.
Next agenda this evening would be the qualification recommendation from PRC.
So last week, Thursday at Wanatah, we did have the technical review committee meeting. And from that, the committee, led by the CDC, Dan Rollins, does recommend to this board that Performance Services is a qualified proposer. So I have in your packet, you have minutes from that meeting last week as proof to that. So that's just information. That takes us on to number 8, a one proposer resolution. Because, to our disappointment, we only had the one proposer, PSI. The board, if you choose to, must adopt a one proposer resolution.
Make a motion to approve the one proposed resolution.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
And we'll want a copy of that signed. And then that takes us to number 9, as these go in steps. Awarding the project to PSI. So we need approval, seeking approval to enter into a contract with Performance Services, subject to final negotiation of terms and conditions of the contract, which will be formalized in the execution of Phase 1 services. And it authorizes Performance Services to provide progressive design-build services by executing the letter of intent on pages 20 through 22 in your packet. So we need, again, a motion awarding the project to PSI.
Now, will we have, Kelly, the responsible bidders act, will we sign that prior?
So, yeah, tonight, the responsible bidder policy, it's your first reading of it tonight.
Okay,
And currently, our school attorney is still working on language
okay.
because a concerned community...
That's why I was asking, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Concerned community member said there was a section that he had questions on.
okay.
So over the course of the next month, she's going to revisit that, and then we'll have our final
Okay.
next month on
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
No, that's great. That's a good
I
question.
missed the last meeting, so.
Yep.
Do I have a motion by the board for the awarding of the project?
I'll make a motion to award the project to Performance Services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion so approved.
Okay. Number 10 on the agenda tonight is the calendar. This is your second reading for next year's proposed calendar. The administration and I received input from the teachers by way of the union, and we took that input and made some changes to the calendar that they find agreeable, and I think we're happy with the calendar presented. It lines up again, as it normally does, with the rest of the schools in the county. So I need approval for next year's calendar.
Motion to approve next year's calendar.
Do you have a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
Yes.
I got it. It's an E.
Section E.
Okay.
Section E is what would be, what she's still looking at.
Okay.
And that takes us to Jake Kukowski, our technology director, has got a presentation for us. I'll turn it over to Jacob.
So this is my presentation on our Wanatah server maintenance and upgrade packs. So first I just kind of want to give a brief, how did we get into the situation here? I contacted Performance Services in January, I believe, on behalf of Scott Spolgeric. He couldn't get into, we provided him with a new computer. His computer was very old, so it was a necessary upgrade for him. He was unable to get into the HVAC system to make any changes. So right now he's kind of using two computers, juggling the HVAC system on one and all other services on the others. So I reached out to them and they said that the current way that it's set up, it was set up, I believe, at the very latest 2010, at the earliest 2008. It's an old server that was set up for him to remote into and control the HVAC system that way. It is no longer, or it will no longer be in compliance for security in July of this year, July 31st. So they presented me with an upgrade to that, and we'll get into the pricing and things like that. Harmony as well, I reached out to them, I believe, around the same time. I have been having issues with Harmony since I arrived. It's just going down every other day, basically. So they told me to add more storage to it, which fixed the issue in the short term. But the long-term issue is that it's running on an old version of Windows 7, which is no longer being supported. Support for that ended in January of 2020. So they recommend installing a virtual machine of Windows Server 2019 on a server that we already have. So what do we need to replace or upgrade? Like, what are the steps to do that? So we need to meet these security compliances. Windows 7 is not compliant with any security. Microsoft is not upgrading or updating any of the security protocols for that. So it is a necessity, especially for our student database. The HVAC system, as I said, will no longer be supported July 31st, 2021. We need to do this for future proofing in case we add servers or anything like that. Possibility to add servers, as I just said. Server technology is constantly evolving. So the idea is, that server that we have at Wanatah now is good, and it would make a good backup. We could still use it for something, but because things speed up at such an astounding rate, newer equipment is going to do us better in the long run. So this is, I'll have three paths to present here, each with different scopes of cost. So the first one is just absolute bare minimum upgrades, and that will involve us upgrading the HVAC server, which is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, if something breaks down, they cannot help us with it. So the direct cost from Performance Services, they've already quoted us, was $26,874 for some hardware, and then building actual software specific to our school system. The indirect cost would be 2 CPU upgrades for that server that's already in use. They said that it couldn't run on anything lower than a 3 gigahertz processor. Right now we're using like a 2.2 gigahertz processor. It's just raw numbers, we're not meeting those criteria. And then the Harmony server, the direct cost of that would just be a license for Windows Server 2019, which would put us at a total anywhere between $31,000 and $34,000. Just with some wiggle room on the CPU cost, depending on which ones we would go for. So what are the benefits for this? Well, we meet all of our immediate needs. The HVAC server will be up to date. Windows Server 2019 is supposedly supposed to be
supported until 2029. It could go much longer than that. We've seen other versions of Windows Server go much longer than that. Harmony is being run on Windows 7, and thus the web server is 2 versions behind. It's just a simple upgrading to Windows 2019 is going to provide the exact same future proofing. And then the powerful CPUs, if we were to add those, which we would need to just for the HVAC system, could also help us integrate other systems, perhaps. If we have to move the camera system or anything like that, it could be integrated into the server. And the drawbacks on this is that the server at the top, the root, these are all virtual machines underneath it, is still running server 2012, which will no longer be supported in 2023. The file system and the domain controller are going to have the same issue. They're also still running 2012. Our warranty on the current hardware ends in July of 2021. Storage capacity issues may arise depending on how the school grows and what we want to add to that server. And CPUs can only be upgraded to a certain point. At different points, you're going to have to upgrade the motherboard, you're going to have to upgrade RAM, all the pieces. But at least the CPU would help us meet the needs that we have now. So these are the minimum upgrades that I would recommend. Firstly, we upgrade the core server to Windows 2019. That's the domain controller and the file system. We have the same thing for the HVAC system. That same direct cost for performance services, the same direct cost for a license, and we would still do those CPU upgrades. Harmony would also get a Windows 2019 server license, and the file server would get a Windows 2019 server license. And then additional costs, I would like to see a storage upgrade. I think we're not low on it right now, but we're getting to the point where we would need to add a few more drives to that server just to be safe in case something went wrong. And that increases that total cost anywhere between $34,000 and $38,000. So the benefits for that are all the previous things that we just talked about. We have the increased storage for files in case we want to add more servers or add more or use Windows more in this organization. And upgrading the root server to 2019, again, that's going to get us up to date till at least 2019. And the drawbacks are very similar to the last one. We lose that warranty here in July, and the CPUs can only be upgraded to a certain point without having to upgrade other hardware. And the future integration could be challenging even with the faster CPUs just because of the nature of older hardware. And this would be my recommended upgrade. We see a lot of the same things here, the direct cost of performance services and a license for Windows 2019. No matter what we do, we need to get that upgraded. Harmony server needs to be upgraded just for security purposes as Windows 7 is no longer compliant. The file server, again, I believe should be upgraded to a new license of Windows 2019 just to meet compliance for the future. And then a brand new server in the price between $11,000 to $12,000, which would include that CPU cost that we had for other projects because they would be brand new CPUs. You would get new storage, we would get new RAM, we would get new everything, and then we could potentially use that old server for backups and maybe the library database, file systems, our domain controller. It all depends, and the total for that would be between $42,000 to $43,000. So the benefits, again, we're seeing all the previous benefits from the first time. There's increased RAM, we have increased storage, we'll have increased CPU speeds, which we would get from the other projects as well, and an increased network card speed, unless we would choose to replace that as well on the old server. And we could potentially, with this extra hardware, integrate other servers into this machine, such as the Wanatah library database or the camera server in Wanatah. Because we're only using one piece of hardware, that reduces power consumption over time. We'll have all brand new parts, which would be under warranty for 5 years. It's less costly than buying individual parts. So if we went a different route and bought the CPUs individually from Intel, they would cost more. And Wanatah wouldn't have to really worry about another upgrade for 5 to 7 years with the warranty and Windows 2019 being compliant for the very foreseeable future. The only real drawbacks are, of course, the initial cost of a new server. It could be very high, and we're adding a lot of workload to just one server, which is why I would want to use the other one as a backup. So the pricing that I did, and this was just initial pricing, I didn't ask about education pricing, I didn't ask about any discounts we might get. The one that I looked at that I thought would meet all our needs was around 11,500 straight from Dell. We use Dell basically for all of our servers, and they've worked well for us. So it would be a PowerEdge R740. This is all kind of technical stuff, but 2 Intel processors that meet that 3.0 gigahertz that we need, that performance services has told us what we need. 6 1.2 terabyte drives at RAID 5. That just means if one of them goes out, we don't lose any data. We just swap a new drive in there and it'll rebuild it. We have Windows 2019 fully licensed for everything over there, which would be great for the next 8 years. 128 gigabytes of RAM at 4 32 gigabyte modules. That's more than we have now. A BOSS control card for fast access to OS and booting. So when I need to access or somebody else needs to access the server at a technical level, it's very fast to reboot, things like that. And just standard fans, power supply, network card, iDRAC is just a way to integrate or a way to communicate with the server. Card slots, and it would come with a mouse and keyboard, and it would have a 5-year warranty provided from Dell. And this is just a picture that I took from the website when I was working on it. Initial cost was $18,169, but they're doing a savings. I'm not sure why they're doing savings over $7,000. And then with tax and everything, it came to $11,237.12. And that's the end of that. So I hope I didn't talk too fast and confuse everybody.
Hey, Tony,
Yeah.
I think it's important to let them know this isn't part of that. This is separated.
Okay. Yeah, just to be clear, this is a totally separate entity from anything to do with the building project. Okay? What questions do you have for Jacob, if any?
You're saying basically for an additional 10,000 or so, we'd be getting the longer vision fix than the first one that you
Exactly.
said, or 6 or 7 more than the second one that you
Yeah,
said.
okay.
It's a no-brainer to me. I mean, I wouldn't consider the first 2 options. But my thought is just knowing how fast technology
Yeah,
changes.
exactly.
Yeah, it's like building a building that's about, or a shop or something like that, that's
Right,
10 foot too short, it just makes no sense.
Has the current rate system failed at all that you're currently utilizing? Is there any performance issues that is impacting the corporation?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Has the current rate system failed? Do you see any failures on a regular basis? And
No,
has there been any?
not currently. We're worried about seeing it in the future, though.
Right.
Because they'll no longer support it past that date, the hard July 31st date. Yep.
And what was it, the current system from 2014 or something?
At the latest, I think it was 2010.
Oh,
Yeah. Either that or they were building on Windows Server 2008 in 2014, which wouldn't make sense to me.
Pretty
They would've
amazing to
been
get 10 years.
2012 by that point.
you can get 10 years out of a server, then you're doing really well.
Yeah. and that is, we need to replace it no matter what, simply because of security issues. It's not, Microsoft does not support 2008 anymore. Whereas some of these other ones, they will support it for at least a couple more years.
And you probably already know this, but security right now is crazier than it's ever been. People trying to backdoor into your systems, and there's more to look at now, or to protect your corporation or protect any entity than ever. That there's a lot of backdoor ways to get into your servers. So I'm sure that's why they're discontinuing the current.
Right, and code for certain Microsoft products in the past has leaked source code for it. So things that are older, Windows XP, Server 2004, they are really at risk. 2008 is always going to be at risk simply because they don't get security updates. But some of that code is still used in 2012 and 2016. 2019 is really the one that changed everything. That's why my thought was to go completely on that side.
And you said we were not, that quote does not include any Dell education dollars at all?
Yeah, I have not contacted them. That was just straight from the website.
Because usually I think that's like 20% or so.
I wanted to get any sort of approval before I
Right.
started making inquiries with them. And I wanted to overestimate the cost first, rather than
Absolutely.
go over budget.
Are there any upgrades or requirements like warranties that Performance provides in the services that they're providing for us? The dollar amounts of their, the services that they're.
I know that they'll provide support as they have in the past,
Okay.
because Scott has had to call them on occasion for issues he's had with that, the older system. I know Connor in the past had to do it as well.
Okay.
So they do provide some kind of support. I'm just not entirely sure the depth of it.
If you wouldn't mind finding like the length of that, if it follows the duration of a server, or what kind of period.
They had said it would be at least 7 years
Okay.
for this system. Whereas that server will also last at least 7 to 8 years. In terms of Windows 2019, there could be other failures that happen along the way, but parts can be replaced.
Right. Thank you for all your efforts on this.
Yeah,
No problem.
appreciate the
Thank
presentation
you.
that you put together.
I hope it wasn't
Thank you for
too
all the work you did.
technically jargon. There's a lot of pieces to it.
Yeah, we wanted to get Jacob in sooner,
Yeah.
so, because we have a little bit of time. We've got some months to decide, and then have him start really honing in on pricing and to see what's out there in that regard. I'd love to say that's the only upcoming technology expenditures, but we also have our one-to-one computers to decide to replace at certain grade levels, and we'll bring that up in the future. But this one was more of a unusual one-off big expenditure that's on the horizon, and he's learning, because we give you the ugly numbers at the start, and if we come in under that, you guys will be happy.
Yeah.
Thank
It
you
would
for
be,
that,
Yeah,
for all the
no
work you
problem.
did, honestly.
Yeah.
it would be great to see, like, when you look at just our school and whole, like, for like maybe a 5-year plan, and when you think what expenses might look like when we need to replace, like you said, more of the one-on-one, and how much longer, how much life we have out of the, some of the current hardware laptops we have, and what might it look like in the future, just so we, as a board, we can look at the budgetary side of things.
Sure, I could get something together probably on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
Oh,
Okay. That takes us on to the next item 15 on your agenda is a much smaller proposal for a bit more roof work at Wanatah. $3,800. This is post-nuclear scan that Trimco conducted for us, where we found out really great news, which is that they deem our insulation there essentially 100% dry. So this would be work to tackle some small leak issues with the rubber membrane or flashing, so that we continue to keep that insulation dry. And then I'm going to bring Todd Linklater from Trimco next month to present directly to you about some more future-leaning roof maintenance as we go, and some things here for the Tiger Den roof, and how they can go about getting an in-depth scan of that barrel-shaped roof, so we have a better understanding there too. So for that, I would need approval for the $3,800 worth of work, and that comes about from Scott, our maintenance man, walking the roof with one of their engineers and kind of creating a game plan.
I'll make the motion to approve that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved.
Okay. Item 16, you don't have anything in your packet yet. We are in kind of the planning stage, as are many schools, about how to tackle the summer months coming up to have an impact on the learning loss that's come with COVID and all of that. So the principals and I have had some discussions about that. Last week, I was at the special ed co-op board meeting in LaPorte, and so the group of LaPorte superintendents, along with our special ed director, we were talking about ways we can work jointly throughout the summer months to try to get as many kids in from possibly 2 sessions, a beginning of summer session and an end of summer session, to tackle that summer learning loss. In addition to the state funding summer school, as they always have in the past, we have some of that CARES Act money that we can devote to what will ultimately be the most robust summer school program we've ever had. I imagine most schools are planning on doing the same thing. So we just wanted you to have a little bit of that information. Brian and Chris are talking with their staff and creating a plan for how we're going to go about that, how to staff it, hours, expectations. I think in order for it to be effective, we're going to want to provide transportation, but that's what those dollars are there for, so we want to put them to good use.
Now,
So-
will it be at one building, Kelly? So I think in the past, hasn't it always been here, Brian? That, didn't it say something?
No, they did it up there.
Okay. It's fine.
I would imagine with as big as this is going to be, and since we're doing credit recovery too, I imagine the high school teachers are going to want to be here, and so we'll probably utilize both sites.
Yep.
Okay. Principal reports, who's up?
Can I ask?
Hold on, we got a question, guys.
It was, what's student parent feedback and buy-in for summer school?
Yeah, we haven't put out any survey or anything yet. We're hoping to be able to convince them, because the worry, that's one of the things we talked about with county superintendents last week. Even under great circumstances, sometimes there's a parental philosophy that, hey, my kid needs a break in the summer. So we're worried about fighting that a little bit, so we're going to have to win some people over. Because right now wouldn't be a good time to take that stance. It might feel that way, but if their gap has widened, maybe because they've been a virtual learner, we need to do some things to try to narrow that gap.
Gotcha. So haven't gotten parents?
Haven't gotten that far yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just a few things. Third 9 weeks actually ends tomorrow. So we are 47 days away from school year being over. I remind the kids every day now, and announcements to tell them how many days we have left. Beginning of the year, I saw them how many days we were in, and I switched it over now. I think they prefer this way better, to know how many days are left. Softball, baseball, golf, and track have started. We'll have games starting the week before. Softball starts the week before spring break, and everyone else starts the week of spring break. And, our drama club did put a virtual, there's a virtual play that they put out there. It's about 45 minutes long. It was all through Zoom. All the kids were at home and they did it through Zoom. And Mrs. Lance asked me, can you watch this before we put it out there? And I really enjoyed it. To me, it was a really good play that they put together, especially in the situation that we were in. And it allowed some kids that are virtual to be in it and that have been in school, that have been online all year. So it's good to see, it's actually good to see some of their faces too, and see them being a part of something. So those are just the 3 things I had for us.
Thank you.
A couple things since our last board meeting for Wanatah. Proud to report our winter season ended with great success rate too, and we were again struggling just to get through it with some of our COVID exposure, if you will, but we had 3 seasons that finished really great with girls basketball and our boys volleyball team too. So a successful season, just getting through and being able to provide that normal activity and extracurricular. And a highlight of that winter season, our 7th grade girls actually won the PCC tournament. So that was great for just a morale boost, if you will, and the girls avenged a loss from last season as well too. So So I think it's something that's going to continue in the future with the group. So just wanted to congratulate the 7th grade girls in front of you guys as well. We have our spring sports coming up, and a lot of interest with that in soccer and boys and girls track as well. As far as school goes, March is the season for assessments, as Brian was talking about as well too. We have iRead that we took in 3rd grade already, and now the big preparation is going to be for our iLearn process. Mr. Shepard was talking about that gap. We're concerned at a school with their big assessments coming up here, and just making sure we're hitting the ground running with our testing coming up in the middle to April. We're really preparing for that now. Also proud to report, I think we're down to 8 students at the whole Wanatah campus that's virtual. So we have a high percentage. 3 more students are returning on Monday. So I believe that puts us at 8 students that are virtual. So 96% of our kids are in-person learning, and that's a great number for us here. With the quarter ending, I'm excited about this March, April, and May because I didn't get to experience that last year. So I'm learning as we go too on the nuances of how we're going to finish the year strong, and it's an exciting day every day. I wanted to see the kids. Oh, one I forgot to mention, we started a new program called Just Sharing Some Good News. And those 2 2nd grade boys up there have been on that list a couple times already for shoveling snow, picking up food, just doing the right thing at the school. And it's just great to hear good news from anybody that wants to share it. I get to read those. And just want to say, those Adams boys have been on there a couple different times. So Alex and Brody, good job. That's all.
Good job.
Thanks, guys.
I think it's pretty amazing when you look at where we started at the beginning of the school year and where we are now. Like, you're just hearing some schools now go to in-person school for the first time, and you guys have been
And some not
experiencing
even.
this. Yeah. So thank you guys for all your efforts the last 9 months.
Yeah, I gotta reiterate, that's well said, Tim, because those 2 guys down there have really gone out of their way to make sure it could happen in person. And of course, their staff as well. But I give them a lot of credit for allaying fears and putting protocols in place and being able to get the kids safely in person.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. To you and your staff.
I think lives.
Next item is SA5 reports. Do I have a motion by the board for approval?
You listen to yours, Darren?
We're missing a few things in our packet.
Really?
Oh, here.
It's hard for me to follow through these without being able to lick my fingers.
Here we go.
All right. We're all the same.
Mr. McMahon? Mr. McMahon?
Yeah.
Is Mr. Moore doing okay that he's lost $5,000 this year compared to?
He's still breathing.
Complaining in the past year. We're lucky Mr. Moore saved it. You know that money? We are.
I'll make a motion to approve the SA5 reports.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Superintendent report.
Well, just to reiterate what those guys were doing, keep us in school. And again, another shout out to Jacob. Thanks for, I'm really impressed with what he's starting to give us as far as a future vision in our tech department. The one other I had on my list was our school nurse. We probably have not said enough about Allison Wright and what she's been able to do this year. I know there have been several weekends where the school nurse and one or both of those gentlemen have started a contacts tracing project on Sunday, working in and throughout Monday to follow the protocols outlined by the state or LaPorte County Health Department. And that's a difficult task, to do everything else that is on a normal principal's plate, but to work along, and so I commend Allison for everything she's done this year too.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You have a motion
Need
for
to-
Before you adjourn, I'd like to thank Mr. McMahon down there. How many kids are in the junior high? I mean, juniors,
Juniors?
Yeah. just roughly,
Let's say 30.
30?
It's right around 30.
Okay. I'd like to make a deal with Chris there, when he has summer school, I got a cornhole game we could use. I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
That's the best $20 we ever spent. wasn't it?
Yeah, and a quick backstory so everyone knows real quick though. Juniors were doing a raffle for 3 items, and at the last board meeting afterwards, Mr. Irwin came up to me and said, here's $20 for it. Told me he donated it if I just put in his donation, but I came in and told Mrs. Roslansky, no, put his names on the tickets. He put the money in, and he wins top prize.
Jim, you got my cornhole set?
Yeah, I sure did.
Oh my
I didn't even
goodness.
know about it.
I got tons of tickets.
So I figured that, if Wanatah wants to use it during summer school, they can use it. All you gotta do
Lucky
is call me
dog,
up.
you.
Have you bought a lottery ticket lately?
Yeah.
No, I think about
Probably
it.
should.
Think
Want to pick
about
me
it.
up one when you pick yours up?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
There you go.
Thank
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great evening.
You too.